They called other people instead of calling 911 when my son died. However, in the justice system, after your child dies of fentanyl poisoning, you're judged. I felt very judged. I felt very silenced. Well, Miss Nazoric, if they wanted your son dead that night, how come they didn't shoot him and leave his body in the West Mesa? That's what the detective told me when my son died. And that if he got up and took something, it was his fault. I named my son Alex because my dad, Alexander, passed away when I was 13. And I did have my son senior year of high school. I was 17 years old, and I named him Alexander Landon. And he had so many characteristics of my father. Just loved to joke around, was always the light of the party when he walked in a room, made friends easily, had a heart of gold, and would just help anybody no matter what, even if he had nothing to give. He even gave a pair of shoes to a kid one time that she didn't have shoes at school, and she hadn't got shoes in a few years. Like, he was just amazing, and he reminded me so much of my dad. He was my angel baby, is what I called him. He loved to joke around. He loved to tease me about how short I was. So if you knew my son, he was always joking around, laughing, trying to make everybody around him happy. He would do his little farts, and I'm like, Alex. And actually the last day when I was dropping him off at the mall before he passed away and I got the notification of him dying, he had leaned over that day, and I tell this story because this was the last laugh that my son gave me. And if I could turn back time, I would have just grabbed him and held him in the car and not let him go that day. And he leans back like this, and I'm like, Alex, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I just wanted to hotbox the car before I got out, Mom. So that's my son. Like, he was just always making everybody around him happy. And in the end, you couldn't even tell that he was hurting inside. And that was a lot like my dad, too. He was just so special and very creative, very artistic. He started drawing at the age of 5, and it looked like he was like a tattoo artist, the drawings that he would draw. And I shared one of his drawings of the rapper Lil Uzi that he did about a year before he passed away. And he just had so much talent. And having a child, you always want them to flourish and to do better than what you did. And I just wanted the best for him. Me and him tended to see nothing but good in others and think that our friends were our friends and people were there with genuine intentions. My son, he went through a lot of childhood adversities that I could not control until I got sole custody of him when he was 10 years old. So children that are in environments where there's drugs, guns, bad things going on, they're more likely when they get older to experiment and do things in environments like that. And this leads me to where I was telling about how he would make friends. He would feel sorry for people. Unfortunately, 6 months before he passed away, our home was broken into. The whole house was ransacked. There was a note on my fridge that next time they would shoot and kill my son. My car was stolen. When I got home, we were out of town, and I called 911. My car was in the garage. They told me it wasn't an emergency, it was just a break-in, to call 242 cops. That day was very traumatic for me and my son, and it would open up, leading to his death 8 months later. That day, me and the detectives talked to my son. I asked my son why he was being targeted, why was our home broken into, and why did that happen, and why did people want him dead? He was very scared that day. That's a picture that will never get out of my mind, and how scared he was. And I told him, no matter what you did, if you did something bad, I'm your mom, and I will have your back, and we'll figure this out, and you need to tell the detectives what is going on. Well, he disclosed to me that because we moved into the South Valley, I had no idea about the cartel activity that was going on there. He had unfortunately made a few friends, whose families were affiliated with the cartel. He said that they threatened to kill him and me that weekend if he told me what he was doing. The detectives that day, we went in the vehicle with them. My son showed them the house where they kept all the bulletproof vests, drugs, guns, shared how they were going to take my car to the border. I was advised that day by Albuquerque Police Department that the cartel runs from Truman on. I had no idea that we were living in a land that the cartel runs. That was very scary. Because of that incident that day, we had to move. I was not able to get us an apartment or anywhere to live, and we were living with family for a few months. My son trusted the wrong people, and that day, he was terrified. He told the police, if I snitch, they're gonna kill me and my mom and my family. And I told him, we will protect you. I will protect you. I will do whatever to protect you. You need to do the right thing, and you need to tell the police what you know. So we skip a few months later. He was given a pill that looked like an oxycodone pill. He had started working at McDonald's. We had moved to Rio Rancho and were staying with family. So just trying to get away from the whole situation, he was doing really good. And unfortunately, my son was having a hard time now making friends from the move and everything. And so he tried this pill, and nobody was at home that day at my mom's house. Me and my sister and my mom were all at work. I got home, and my son looked almost dead. It was a pill that was blue with an M on it. I called 911, and they had asked if we had Narcan available because the symptoms I was describing of my son seemed that maybe he ingested something and was having an overdose. The police got there, and as a mother, I got my son's phone, and I showed the police the message of the dealer that gave him this pill that nearly killed him and everything. My son was laying there, nearly lifeless. The EMTs took him to the ICU, and the police wanted to charge my son for possession of controlled substance instead of going after the dealer that gave my 16-year-old child something that put him in the hospital for 2 weeks, nearly killed him, took his hearing out of one ear. His speech, he couldn't talk for 3 days. The first word that my son said when he tried to talk was mom. And I'll never forget that day because we thought we were going to lose him before Christmas of 2021. And not a lot of people know this story and what my son was going through. I kept him out of school until January 15th of 2022. He did not want to go back to school. There were so many rumors about my son that, oh yeah, he's a big drug addict. He was in and out of rehab and all of these things that he was going to. He didn't want to go to school anymore. He said, Mom, I'm just labeled and people are just so mean about everything. And he was begging me to transfer him out of that school at that time. I had talked to the social workers. The principal did a whole IEP plan, was very careful. I did not want to let him go back to school. I didn't realize until 3 months after he died when I would see the messages in his cell phone because I had his logins to Instagram and everything, why he didn't want to go to school. And this is why, since he passed, I want to end the stigma. Our teenagers are going through so much. And my son, yeah, he was experimenting with a few things before he died. And not to make excuses, but everybody has a story. And my child witnessed things that no child should be around from ages 5 to 10, which is a very pertinent time in their life. So my son, had told the police everything. I thought that we would be safe, things would be okay. About 2 weeks before he died, Valentine's Day to be accurate, a girl that's, a known drug user in the valley and her parents that use drugs and one of the kids, which I just found out last year, which is hurt a lot, that one of the kids that my son snitched on had made friends with me and went to his funeral, came to my home, was starting to use my son's platform of his music, wanted to be a rapper and everything. And I kept asking him who this third kid was that my son told the detectives about, because he told me that he believed that my son was set up to be poisoned that night and to make it look like an overdose. But he never talked to the police. We had another witness come forward that talked to the DEA about what happened that night. And I had an agent that took my son's phone, extracted information, was supposed to set up informants on the case, and look further into things as to why they called other people instead of calling 911 when my son died. I got the Albuquerque police report from the break-in, but I didn't get it till last summer. That kid was hanging around me since my son's funeral, and he was one of the people that wanted my son dead. So you have to be very careful in who you trust, who you allow in your home, especially when you are under that fog of grief and you just want anybody around you that can share memories of your child. But once I started noticing things not adding up and I got the report, the DEA agent told me that they were fully aware of that individual and that I needed to slowly stop communicating with them, take his music off of my son's platform that I had put, and just really break the chain that he was a very dangerous person. I've heard a lot about informants. I'm not sure if maybe he's an informant because since 2021, he has broken into many other homes, done armed robberies. He's still out there. And they say they're watching him. But yeah, it's weird, these cartel families and associations with the cartels. I kind of felt like they're more protected than the victims and the ones that snitch and give information to make our community a better place. So back to the night that he died. Alex was begging me on Saturday, February 26th. He was supposed to start his job at Popeye's Chicken. He had been doing so good. I had not let him out of my sight since that awful day when he was in the hospital and he fought that. The doctor said that his body could not tolerate fentanyl. I asked them about putting him in rehab, getting him out of New Mexico, what I needed to do as a mom. They told me just to keep an eye on him, to make sure he didn't try anything off the streets again, because if he tried something again, it would kill him next time. So February 26th, Saturday evening, I took him to Popeye's Chicken. He said, Mom, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get this job all on my own, because after McDonald's and everything happened, I was ready for him to start working and trusting that he would be okay. He came out so happy that day because he was going to be driving soon, and I told him, we're going to get you back on track. We'll work on your music, your senior album. He came out and he said, guess what, Mom? I got the job, and I had told him that if he didn't get the job there, that we were going to Dion's next, and he was going to apply there. If you know me, I always try to be 10 steps ahead of him. So he comes out, says, Mom, I got the job. He was so happy. He said, thank you, Mom, for believing in me. He said, I will never, ever, ever try anything again. And we just talked so much. We were even working on getting him his medical marijuana card. He had a lung doctor, a cardiologist. He was doing a lot better. He begged me that night. He said, Mom, tomorrow evening, my ex-girlfriend and her mom, they invited me over to eat pizza and asked if I could stay the night. And I said, you could go eat pizza, but you're not staying the night. And there's a reason to that, because 2 years before, this girl's friend had given my son a Xanax, and they tested it, that Xanax, it was not positive for Xanax or anything. It nearly killed my son, and he was in the hospital for 2 weeks. So I managed for 2 years to keep these individuals away from my child. So plans changed on Sunday, February 27th. That morning he said, well, Mom, I want to meet my, so-called best friend at the mall. It's his birthday. Can you give me $40? We're going to meet and we're going to look around, and I want to get him a gift. And I'm like, okay, well, I thought you wanted to go eat pizza. And I had finally agreed to Uber him there to eat pizza, and I would physically pick him up to know that he was okay. And if you know my son, I knew he was going to do what he wanted to do at the end of the day. Well, we're almost to the mall, and he says about his friend, he says, oh, well, I guess we're not going to meet at the mall anymore, Mom. And I'm like, what? I didn't want him to go to this girl's house. And he's like, so can I go over there? Can you just Uber me? So I Ubered him. I got him an Uber from Cottonwood Mall. That's where he used to work before. And he went over there. I had went to an event with a friend, and I was supposed to pick up Alex to go to Applebee's to eat with us. And if you know my son and how much he loves Applebee's and hot wings, it was just weird that he wasn't answering and I couldn't get a hold of him. And because of the past and when he had taken off before, my family and friends were just telling me that night, he's okay, Sarah. He's probably just not listening and not getting back to you because he wanted to stay the night and you won't let him stay the night. And I wanted to drive over there and I wanted to go pound on the front door and ask if my son was okay. But this mother and this girl would never talk to me. I would try to get the mom's phone number. I would try to be that parent to communicate, and they would not communicate with me. So it was said on the police report that I shared that my son's death is what was called an unattended death. He was stiff and blue when they called 911, which I shared the 911 call.
Not conscious, not breathing, calling parties refusing CPR.
Callers refused to do CPR. I thought things were weird. APD was investigating for foul play to see how my son ingested the fentanyl. Toxicology said that it was fentanyl toxicity and it was an accidental death. The narrative that was told to the police is that this girl was smoking wax with my son. Wax was found next to his body, which I know that he was experimenting with marijuana and he was smoking wax, cannabis wax, but he knew not to smoke anything off the streets. They did find a crystal white substance in the mother's bedroom, but they destroyed it. However, the wax is still sitting in evidence and has not been tested yet. And I still wonder if that's what stopped my son's heart and what happened that night and why 911 was not called, why my son's phone and his shoes and items and a necklace was removed off of his body, why things were taken off, why a picture was taken of him. And the last picture of my son that I saw on his phone when the APD finally got it back the next day, he's like this. He looks scared. I think that was after whatever they smoked, and then he had that look that I saw that day as if he was dead. It was a scared look, and these people took a picture of him. I was told that there would be a full autopsy done on my son by OMI. I found out 3 months after he died that they failed to do a full autopsy on him. I was so distraught at that time. I believed the police and everything that were helping me at that time. So I ended up cremating him. And I still wonder till this day, was it really wax that had the fentanyl in it? Why has the wax not been tested? There was a message that I found on my son's Instagram of a kid that messaged after he was dead that said, "Let me know about the wax." And I shared this message too that I obtained from his phone. And I messaged this kid back and I said, "Do you know what happened to my son? He was found dead this morning." And that's one of the last people that talked to my son and saw my son. So I believe that there is more to the story. I've talked to other entities besides APD that have looked at the report and everything and have told me that that scene should have been crossed off that day and people should have been taken in for questioning because it did not seem right that there was a parent, there were adults there, and my son, his body was just laying there for how many hours until they called 911. And I was calling him and texting him and wondering, and I was even sending him messages saying, honey, I'm sorry I didn't let you stay the night. Like, you shouldn't have rebelled. And, like, telling him, and he was laying there dead. And the last time I did a welfare check on that address 2 years before his death, they had lied to the police. So I go back to that day and I'm like, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I show up there myself? But at the same time, you can't go to a home that's known for drive-by shootings, drug activity, things like that, which I shared on the CAD report too, and all the substantiations of CYFD. I was scared of those people. Me being scared and not going and demanding that they let me talk to my son. I wonder how many hours he laid there. And I wonder how he felt before he died, because he knew that I would never give up on him. And if that was my child, if that was someone else's child that came to my house and I invited them over for pizza and everything, they would have gone home alive. I would have got that child's phone and talked to the parent. They saw my text messages and calls and everything and how worried I was, and nobody would call me back. And getting that call, I had to be into work. I was working grave shift at the time. I had to be into work 2 hours earlier that night. I felt like I had the whole world on my shoulders. Our house got broken into. My car was stolen. I got a few months behind on my car payment. My car got repossessed. I just had so much, and me and my son just needed a little support. And instead of me driving to that house, I knew something was wrong, and I told myself, if I don't hear from him, by 7 p.m., I'm telling my boss that I need to go to that house and check on my son. I felt like something was not right. I got a call at 7:05 p.m. on Monday, February 28th, 2022. And I was at work. And it was a video call from a friend that me and my son were staying with since the break-in. And I was like, oh my God, is Alex home? That's what I thought. I said, did he come home? Is he okay? And she looked like distressed in the video call, and I said, oh my God, don't tell me he got in trouble. He got arrested. Something happened. I thought he was going to tell me that he had gotten arrested because a few months before he got in trouble with that kid for stealing a car. And I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I'll get there. And she's like, she started crying, and she passed the phone to a detective. And the detective said, I need to come to you wherever you're at. And I said, well, is my son okay? I said, I've been worried about him all day. I said, last time that he was hanging around with this group of friends, he almost got shot. I had thought that maybe something happened and he got shot. They told me that, that they couldn't tell me till they got to my work. But I begged the detective. I said, is my son okay? I need to know he's okay. And he said, there was an unattended death of a male 16-year-old child. And he was with the Crimes Against Children unit from Albuquerque Police Department. And he needed to talk to me because my son was dead. And all I remember is falling to the floor that night. And it didn't feel real. I was crying on the floor and telling God, no, 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 no. That's all I remember. I don't even remember how I stood up. I don't remember a lot. And I remember these two detectives coming to my work and my coworkers holding me. Alex's death hurt a lot of people. There were so many people throughout my years in the court system that really cared about my son and had seen everything we went through. And I'm so grateful for everyone that was there for me that night, that gave me water, that helped pick me up, that got me together for when the detectives came. It's not a call that any parent ever wants to get. If you feel something is not right, you believe that intuition. Losing my son made me believe in my intuition and that feeling in your heart. You don't listen to others. You go with the feeling that you're feeling. And I know it's not my fault. I blame myself for the longest time in letting him go to the mall and going to eat pizza. But unfortunately, not everybody parents the same. And, you know, I wasn't the cool mom with the party house where all the kids wanted to go smoke weed, drink, try pills, this and that. I had to be the good mom. I had to be a mom, but I was his best friend too. He saved me. My son saved me, and he gave me 16 years of life with him because I would have not made it past being a teenager. He was my angel baby. And my son loved the mall. I actually caught him ditching one day at the mall. I had a tracker on his phone. And if you know the investigator in me, this is a funny story about him. And that was after the whole overdose a few months before, and he was back at school, and I tracked him, and he said that he was going to lunch at school. And I'm like, his location says the mall. I bet you he's at Burger King. So I go to Cottonwood Mall. And I'm just pretending because it was my day off work, and I walk by Burger King, and sure enough, my son is standing in line waiting to buy chicken nuggets. The ghost pepper ones were his favorite. And I walk by, and I was like, Alex! And he's like, oh, Mom! And I'm like, what are you doing here? I thought you were at school right now. And he's like, And I said, I caught you. And he's like, Mom, please don't embarrass me. He had pointed over to a table of a group of friends. He said, Mom, please, don't embarrass me, because if you know me. And he was scared of me, too. I'm like, you are going to come with me and get in the car, and we're going home, and you're grounded. I'm taking your phone. He's like, Mom, please, I've been having a hard time making friends. You're going to embarrass me. He said, can I have them drop me off at Gma's house? He called my mom Gma for grandma. And I said, Alex, and he said, I swear, Mom, they'll drop me off over there. Just don't make a scene. And I said, okay, I'm going to trust you. And so that's one of the last stories of a few weeks before he passed, and how I was always trying to be 10 steps of him, because after the hospital, his hospitalization, they told me that it would be up to me to keep an eye on him 24/7. And how is any parent supposed to be with their child 24/7 when they're at work and doing other things? And now I'm carrying the biggest cross of my life in fighting for all these other kids and people that are wrongfully poisoned. This is why I tell people about Narcan and everything. If you know that there's fentanyl in a substance that you're going to use with your friend, you let them know. You tell them, because everybody deserves a chance to go back home at the end of the night. Nobody deserves to die over a mistake and experimenting. Nobody deserves to die.
So APD didn't do anything?
No, they told me it would take months to get the toxicology report. I kept calling the detective. I would email him, get left on red. He never called me back. Finally, I had got a hold of him about the end of May of 2022, which was 3 months after my son died. And he tells me on the phone, and I have all the conversations I recorded too, because you just have to be careful. And he says, no, the toxicology report isn't available. It's going to take a few more months. And I'm like, well, that's strange, because I talked to OMI last week, and I actually have a copy of the toxicology report. So if you want me to email it to you right now, we were on the phone. I said, I can email it to you. I said, and you told me that you guys were going to figure out how my son ingested the fentanyl, test if it was poked, if it was injected, his lungs. I said, it doesn't say anything. It doesn't say a full autopsy on here. And that was when he made the comment, well, if your son got up and took something that night, that was on him. That it was my son's fault for trying anything that could have killed him that night. So I ended up a year later hearing about DEA, and I reached out to the DEA. They took my son's phone. They extracted a lot of information off of it, did a lot of drug busts and everything. However, I'm still kind of at square one again, because I've been asking the district attorney's office, I've asked the DEA, I've gone to APD, to victim advocates, I talked to the governor at that town hall meeting. The APD chief of police was there. I told them the same story I'm telling you, and all they said that night was, we're making better fentanyl laws. Nobody could give me an answer as to what's going on. I even talked to a supervisor DEA agent the end of June of this last year at a DEA summit, and he told me he would get back to me and look into everything. It's January 25th today, and it's been 7 long months, and I'm still waiting, so I'm going to have to reach out again and continue. It's like, why doesn't anyone want to look into anything out here? And my son told me to be very careful. He said that there's a lot of corruption and a lot of cartel, and cartel is even paying Albuquerque Police Department officers and Rio Rancho police officers. That day he was terrified to tell the police what happened, because he was scared that they would tell the cartel, and that's something that he would end up dying a few months later. He didn't want to tell them. He didn't want to go in that vehicle, but I made him, and I went with him, and I requested all the lapel footage from that day too. He was my only child, and after he died, I had no purpose in life anymore. Not until a year and a half later, June of 2022, when we filmed our first commercials with Keepin' Em Alive. And Keepin' Em Alive, we're really trying to keep New Mexico alive and help others through our story and end stigma. No matter if you're in addiction or going through something or you lost a loved one, we can't be silenced. If I would have continued in silence at home, I would be an alcoholic right now. I would be addicted to multiple substances that the doctors were trying to put me on after my son died. I would probably be dead. One of our favorite movies was Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey, and my son was very intuitive with energies and everything. 3 days before he died, he made a song, and he showed it to me. And the narrative in this song talks about drug dealing, this, that. And I'm like, son, this sounds like a real story. And he said, Mom, he's like, it's not. This is what people rap about. You have to rap about drugs or girls or this or that. And then he told me that day, and we were coming home from school. He says, Mom, what would you do if somebody killed me? And I looked at him and my heart dropped that day. This was a few days before he died. And I said, what would I do, Alex? I would die. I could not even imagine. I said, since you were born, you're the reason that I strive to go to college. You're the reason that I strive because I was a teenage mom in senior year. You were the reason that I do everything. I would die if something happened to you. And then he starts talking about energies, and he's like, well, Mom, if anything ever happened to me, you know our movie Interstellar that we love, and how he goes to another galaxy and there's like through different dimensions and communicating with his daughter. He told me that if anything happened to him, that he would find a way to communicate with me. And my camera at home picked up the first communication of his voice in his bedroom the end of May 2022. And that's when I started looking at his phone and looking into things. And I believe my son now that his energy will never die. His energy is what has been with me. He's here right now talking through me. He is the one that has been holding my heart and keeping me alive and telling me, Mom, you gotta look at this. Mom, you gotta look at my MacBook. Mom, you gotta look at that song. Mom, I can hear it all the time. And at first, people thought I was crazy until I met all of my wonderful angel moms and everybody that has came in my path. And they understand me. I have found my real family with everyone that I have met in New Mexico, Washington, D.C., all over the United States. And I'm very grateful for everyone. And I'm very grateful that I made it to today. Next month will be 3 years that he passed away. And I'm very proud of myself. I never say that, but I'm very proud of myself that I made it here today, because I would not be here, and none of this would be happening if it wasn't for my beautiful son right here. My son loved Machine Gun Kelly. When COVID shut down everything, he was playing football for Atrisco High School that first semester, then COVID shut down. And I wanted something to keep him busy, and he's like, Mom, I want to start making beats. Can you get me a MacBook or this FL Studio? And between me and my mom, we bought him everything he needed for his room. So he took an interest into wearing pink and doing his hair pink. And then he started making beats at the beginning of 2020. And then I told him, son, you should start like trying to rap, put music into it. Because he always loved doing poetry since he was 10 years old. I have a book of poems. He would express a lot that he was going through. So this pink jacket, he was the last one to wear it. He was very, very happy. I remember when he said, Mom, can you order me a pink jacket? And I had always tried to get him to wear pink because pink was my favorite color. And here a few months before he died, we had even did our hair pink together. And, you know, I never wanted to shield who he was. I wanted him to show who he was and not be controlled or, you know, the way I was told you have to act this way or that. And so Alex showed his individuality. He took a love for music and rap and was producing many, many songs. And he only showed me a few songs before he died. And now that's been my passion since he died, is going through all of this music and sharing it with the world and just letting his legacy and everything live on. Because he would tell me, he's like, Mom, one day I'm going to be a rapper and I'm going to get a pink mansion and you're never going to struggle. We're never going to struggle. Like, life's going to be good. And you know what? He's in his pink mansion right now with my dad. I know he is. And they're both my guardian angels, and that's why I have guardian angel on this picture. And this is a very special picture. And they have carried me through the hardest years of my grief. And lastly, too, one thing that I think I forgot to mention, before COVID started, he was very interested in becoming an extra and acting and getting into film because there was a lot of opportunities in Albuquerque coming here. And one of my friends, I was at work on Graveyard, if you know me, I was always working. He sent me a message. He said, Sarah, they're going to be filming this movie called Stargirl by Disney, and you should send Alex's picture. I bet you they'll book him. And I'm like, well, he's always wanted to try this. Like, I'll try it, you know? And I'm like, I don't know if I could get off work in the morning. I sent his picture. They booked him for 5 days. He had so much fun, and I wanted to get him in more projects. He got screen time, got to mingle with other kids, the producer, and he was a natural. He was just a natural. Everybody loved him. So when I want to see my son, I'm very blessed that there's times that I can watch that movie and I can see him in the background, and I can remember me and him being on set and me not sleeping for 2 days, getting off grave, taking him to set, taking a little nap, like just being, and he called me his momager. And it was just one of the most wonderful memories. And COVID, I can only imagine how many other children it affected, because I really believe that things would have been a lot different had COVID not happened and shut down the film industry, shut down the sports for the kids, shut down everything, to where us parents are being the teachers at home every day, keeping our kids busy while trying to maintain a full-time position too. And I know I did my best and I gave it my all. And I never thought his story would have ended this way, especially if you've heard his story and what he went through in his childhood. I would have never thought that he would have died from fentanyl poisoning. I would have never ever thought that my son would have tried something and died from fentanyl poisoning.
I know that my mama is getting tired of me always being in trouble. I'm in my what the hell? I don't wanna wake up another frustrated kid in depression. I hate ya, but I love you. I just need a bit of motivation. I hate ya, I just need to get back into meditation.